walking through the normal town outside of London, UK, and I realised the only difference between somebody like Elon Musk and politics is that politics runs on an agenda. Where mannerisms have gone out the window and we've lost our identity because of this woke ideology issue that has caused diversion. But when you look at somebody like Musk, you have to understand where he's coming from, and whilst he can seem like somebody who has too much power, would you rather he has power in wanting to make things right for humankind, because what he's doing with SpaceX is advancing humankind and advancing the technology that comes with that trust, where trust has been eroded by and part from the government we invest in our votes for freedom. And when you walk through a town like this, you realise every other person has the same sort of size bank account, because they wouldn't be walking through a place like this otherwise. It's a utopia to me, and I get lost in it. But even then, there's a lot of colour and a lot of expression. It's like when you think about those things and the rules and regulations around the blind studio show. And all the confusion around the e-scooters. What's the point in having a product that you're selling in the UK for vast amounts of money, when if you look at e-bikes, they're already quite expensive, and scooters are entry level, which are friendly modes of transport and also environmentally friendly. But for some reason, UK policing seems to think that it's a motor vehicle because it needs to go on the road, but there is no protection, so it should equate it enough to be needed to be on the pavement. So therefore, of course, they want to trial it for several years, and it's coming up to 2026 where it will be decided upon after having learned about them. There was an operation called Pedal Fast here in the city to confiscate scooters, and interestingly they confiscated a high amount only last month, and as you saw there, there's still people using them, so they're not going to stop people using or investing in them. But it's just the way that the UK policing have deemed it to be a road vehicle, but it's just ridiculous to think that there's no protection. And therefore, if cars need to steer clear of it a bit more, then that means it needs a different part of the road to be on, like a cycle lane. So it's just these things that just end up in this weird situation of no solution. But scooters are a good alternative, although they can be a nuisance when teenagers use them inadequately, irresponsibly, as they do. But maybe you need a small little short course on them to use them safely, like with drones. I think that's what they started to do with drones, with flying drones. But they didn't have a trial like scooters did. And it just made me realise all these things when it comes to people like Musk. Would you rather have a toxic government which refuses to admit the truth and just says, you know, like the recent Stalin, you know, acceptance speech of what a woman was when the court case was won? He welcomes it, he says, but he's not going to say otherwise, is he? And so he gets stuck in this predicament time and time again. And this is where I've been finding things difficult to get stability in my life, because the economy is far from stable, and I've had it affect my life throughout my working career and my early career, and I've just not been able to find a job more recently. And when it comes to advancing society, the only thing I see or realise is that they want to sew it down and slap on and confiscate things that should be more easier for society to develop. With this innovation that's kicking in the global AI race space, and especially in terms of cryptocurrency, they've not even begun to mention that. And so it makes you wonder when you look around, and money can go, you know, so fast out of your hand from just having it walking around town. Maybe that statement I made earlier about the people of this town are not adequate, but it makes you wonder, when we're all in the same space as each other, what are people's bank balances? Because they can't be that much more than anybody else's to consider. And we're all getting the same thing, and it's like there's this weird predicament of being on an assembly line of production, and I just don't like that feeling of having grown up in this country. And when you get to my age, people aren't going to work with you, and in the way that young kids would, you know, when they get their first jobs after university, they can establish themselves in their career. And I think there's a problem when it comes to opportunities like that. We just do not grow because society doesn't want us to grow. And if you look at these jobs, you know, in local councils, they're all older people, some are younger, but for the most part that makes me question again, is the British native, it's not that we've lost our identity, but that it is declining. And when I looked at the Carol Vorderman data website for voting, you could see that there were there were more non-voters than voters. And this to me spells out why they're having immigration, because they are using the immigrants in a dying populace to overpopulate, to stop what is already dying since 2008. And I think this is the problem, and because there is no ingenuity around, these one-off individual places in town aren't able to sustain, and so they go bankrupt. So you have to have an alternative. And I think things like having your own community online is that alternative. So this is me trying to set up and take it how it goes. And talk about the politics. So you can walk with me at the same time. And just see what happens. But my bus is here now, so I'm going to get going for it. But even the transport is changing to electric buses, and that bus is also electric.